Each brand will get unique set of writers. Don't we already have unique writers on Raw and SmackDown now, and they still can't get it right? I don't want this to be a bashing video on the writing necessarily, but I want to talk about some examples in the past couple years where WWE writers have made me think that they didn't actually go to school for writing and don't know what the hell they're doing. And here's why. Some notable examples that I can throw out, and I'm sure you guys will throw some in the comment section as well. I can think of big terms or big key things that happened that WWE did socially relevant things for that eventually fell flat. And I'm going to cover a couple of these. Now, some of these do die off because, memes or things that are hot in the country only last for a little bit. One of the big ones was Elimination Chamber. When Daniel Bryan was trying to retain his title and win, he was in the Elimination Chamber and Santino Marella was there. They were playing off of the Jeremy Lin storyline. Now, what better way than to stay relevant? That's what WWE can do. Unlike a show like Family Guy, which can be relevant, scripted 6 months after it happens in the next season, or, you can be socially relevant now, kind of like South Park is. They're socially relevant now while still telling their story. And that's where WWE kind of comes in. That's where WWE has been some of the most popular things. When you cheered for Stone Cold Steve Austin about taking down his boss and taking down the man, you related to that. You were sold on that. Writing nowadays has gotten to be, I don't think there is writing. I honestly, I know some of the promos have actual writing, but I'm wondering where the writing is gone. Because you had a guy like Kalisto that very, very talented. When Sin Cara got hurt and they went the different direction from the tag team from the Lucha Dragons and instead had Kalisto be the U.S. title, they had a great opportunity with him for, say, the Giant, the David versus Goliath, a typical story. And they didn't even do that. They did one pay-per-view where they finally started to get Morrow on the call, talking about story, and he could overcome some of these big guys. And yes, it may have been a little predictable, but, a little guy, what does he have to do to overcome? That's why he's doing all these high-flying moves, these big action moves to keep Ryback off his feet. And they did a good job trying to tell a story. And then what happened? We all thought Cena was coming back. He was going to reclaim his title. Rusev was going to win, and they didn't go that route, and now Rusev is champion. Now, I'm not knocking Rusev as champion because of the fact that Rusev is looking like a legit beast. His conditioning is getting on point. He's working out more than he did before. He's got Lana, which is going pretty well. And it begs the question of, what did WWE do with Kalisto? Is it something that Kalisto did wrong, or was it just time to move on? Because the titles had no writing behind it whatsoever. And the WWE has been that way for the Intercontinental and the U.S. title for a while. Other than the Miz's storyline as of late, they really haven't had a storyline. They really haven't had, for the most part, we haven't had hardly any storylines. Now, when we do the brand split and we have two teams of writers, this is something that I've thrown out. I've heard a couple other people throw out. I don't remember where I originally first heard the idea. I don't think it was Meltzer, but you definitely should have teams of writers that are dedicated to certain people. If you have a show 3 hours and 2 hours, and you have to fill that programming, and you have a team of writers, you have anywhere from 10 to 15 writers, say you have 30 writers, and you split the shows, and you have 10 to 15 writers on each show, and you are trying to brainstorm a show that used to be written by Vince Russo himself, along with Ed, and they would write Raw and SmackDown. Now, granted, even if it was 2 hours, there was still a lot of stuff that Vince Russo wrote that sucked, but the good stuff, the big impact stuff was booked and scripted properly between commercial breaks, and it felt important. Now, we all talk about the Attitude Era and how great it was, and the writing was great. If you go back and watch it, a lot of it really wasn't. It was the characters or personality that superseded everything that went into it. And with WWE and the amount of media brand partnerships they have, I understand why WWE really can't let people go off the cuff as much. It brings down the performances a little bit and ultimately does kind of suck. I mean, you have a guy like Damien Sandow who went out and did this gimmick that he saw it in the crowd and went, oh, all right, let me try to mimic this. And then he did a move and then the crowd popped. He found something. He didn't have a writer go out of his way and come up with this crazy idea. Hey, what if we have, because if you imagine the stuff that's got over the most is stuff that's just kind of happened naturally. Daniel Bryan, wrestling, going out there, overcoming. getting things taken away from him. Okay, I'm going to prove that I can do it. Wrestle 1, 2, 3 matches a night. You have a purpose. You see that fire in him. You believe in Daniel Bryan, and that's why to this day I think it's going to go down as one of the best storylines of my adult childhood wrestling era. In terms of, I mean, yeah, you had the NWO, you had the Invasion, you had Monday Night Wars, but you had Daniel Bryan, a guy that never should have been in the company according to old WWE standards, that was held down constantly, that if you think about it, IWC, he's buried, and then to win on the grandest stage of them all against Batista and Randy Orton, that says a lot. It was a story of overcoming. And, you know, WWE has got rich storylines down in NXT because they're simple. They're not anything out of this world. Kevin Owens got signed to the WWE after Sami Zayn, so he was there to destroy Sami Zayn, and what did he do? He destroyed him. Left him after he hit him on the apron. He was out. Sami Zayn is eventually gone with injury after he came up to the main roster, and it fizzled out. And then, you know, so he was gone. And then he comes back, and then they reignite the rivalry between Owens and Zayn. And you could kind of keep reliving that, but there's going to get to a time where Owens and Zayn might get to the Randy Orton Cena-esque stature, where that writing can no longer apply to just, okay, we have this feud between them, and let's keep exploiting it. There's going to get to a point where it's going to be a little redundant, but at this point, it hasn't gotten there. Those video packages are some of the best video packages I have seen. Now, I love watching epic wrestling. I love watching stuff like PWG, New Japan, Ring of Honor, but I've craved having these big storylines that you can just, you know, grasp into. Now, kayfabe does kill storylines because if you're looking at what am I supposed to believe, or, you know, what am I doing now, and you're looking at the product and you're going, well, okay, I know that's not real, you know. So how do you write storylines in the kayfabe era, or the non-kayfabe era, where people know it's not real? Like in the past, everybody was like, oh, wrestling's fake, though, you know. Yeah, but you also don't have it being spoiled in the writer's room like most all TV shows are. If you had spoilers or leak things from other shows non-wrestling, they would probably rewrite the shows. They would probably work around it. In WWE, it's a live, always evolving script. Anything can happen at a moment's notice. WWE can, right before a match, we changed our mind. We're going in a different direction. We're giving him the strap, kid. You know what I mean? So WWE can do that with the writing. So that does WWE a service and a disservice. Whether or not you're the one going out there and you're the one that's getting changed for, or you're the one that's changing, it's got to suck. We talked about the storylines before. You had the Jeremy Lin one with Santino Marella. You had the Daniel Bryan being the underdog. You had Kalisto as the David Goliath small guy that ended up doing nothing. You had the Damian Sandow impersonations, which was fantastic, and imitating Miz, and then it eventually led to nowhere. Why? Why was it not continued? Eventually it was killed off for, you know, the Hulk and Macho Man thing that eventually fizzled out because of the racism. And now the writers couldn't help that. If it was starting to get over a little bit, or brother, it was working, at least in the gimmick that he was put in, at least it was working. So when you have a brand split now and you're looking at these teams of writers, I think each writer, or maybe a title, should have a separate writer so they're the ones that control it. So that way, the guy that's writing the funny comedy segments isn't the one that's helping book. And like I said, I don't know how it's necessarily getting booked. I don't know if it's all Vince, if, you know, he throws around matches and he likes it and decides to go with it. I don't know what the process is like in that creative boardroom nowadays with the amount of programming that they have to push out and the amount of programming that they have to do. Which, if you think about it, it's honestly got to be pretty overwhelming to think about the amount of writing and things they have to plan for. But using those examples, having dedicated writers on a 3-hour show, like Damian Sandow had quit, and then Cody Rhodes brought up the writer, who was assuming probably Ryan, about the one that was just interested in getting around with NXT Divas. If you have a writer that's, say, dedicated to the women's division, a couple writers, so that way the people that don't care about women's wrestling, or the people that aren't even wrestling fans in general, just writing wrestling, leave that up to the non-big wrestling spots. Let wrestling writers and agents book the matches and write them, and then let you write the Hollywood stuff, the integration stuff, all the stuff that's not wrestling based. Have them write those part of the shows. Like I said, because I don't know what it takes. If I want to be a WWE writer, I wouldn't write a wrestling show. I would go to Hollywood and try to get some credentials right now if I was trying to be a writer in the wrestling business because they apparently don't want wrestling writers. It's the age we've changed into. So when it comes to storyline writers, guys, nothing's going to be an easy fix. But do you think certain superstars, certain titles should get their own writers? So WWE, even if they have a writer for a Raw for the women's division, they have writers for the IC division, the Cruiserweight division. Let me know how you think that should work in the comment section below. I'd be interested to hear your opinions. Until next time, it's your boy Tubby Emu.